tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning, I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die, for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible. To be invincible, we'll be
Hey guys, welcome back to Two Guys and Hockey Talk. It is season 4, episode 36, brother. 36. Hard to believe that we are only, about 4? How many weeks do we got left in our season? We got about 7, 8 more weeks.
3 to 4 left. Yeah, with the way that the conference finals are going for the East and the West, they may be pretty over pretty quick with both of those series. So,
well, yeah, that'll be over, but our season's not over until free agency. We always wrap up after free agency for the summer.
That's true.
Yeah.
So we do have a bit of time still, but there's still a few more episodes and quite a bit of hockey news to go around. But remember,
let's do it.
Wednesday night, we are here at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Give us a follow at Facebook, Twitter. You can follow Evan at RevanEv. You can follow me at Hockey_2, or you can check out our YouTube page. We'd love to see you guys. If you like what you're seeing here, see our content on YouTube. Make sure that you guys also give Sport Empire a follow. They are wonderful. They are partners. They have cover all things sports, NBA, NFL, MLB. Lots going on. You know, the Jays winning 25-1 versus the Rays. You know, the Lakers being swept. Lots going on. Kyle, Freddie, and the team there, they got you covered. Go ahead, Evan.
Well, I like my girl, Key, man. She is a Flyer fan. So, Key, I like to put a shout out to Key. Of course, I mostly work with Key in dealing with the tech stuff, so they do a wonderful job. And don't forget, Sports Empire Network also talks about wrestling. So, you know, whether you're talking lay a SmackDown, you want to see it Raw with the WWE, or if you want to go and blow up the dynamite on AEW. By the way, I am going to an AEW, so I got to talk with the guys, and maybe they want something live. I don't know. We'll see that I can do right from the arena for a double recording of live Dynamite plus a pre-recorded Rampage show, a double show at Rogers Place right here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I also like to make a mention to JR Web Designs, who developed our new website that we have now up in place. Folks, get in there. You'll notice that there is sections. You can read all about us a little bit so you can know. We have media platforms. By the way, we are also on Spotify through the Sports Empire. We've been doing quite good on there. So if that's you're someone who loves just listening to the podcast through Spotify, or you can find us on Amazon. I haven't got that updated yet, or any of the other locations. Check out all of our former guests that we do have on the show. You're able to go in and check out our blogs. We have our blogs. So I just got one up yesterday morning. Pavel's got another one up. You want to go in and read, and also check us out on the social media. So in our, by the way, when we have our former guests, we give you all the information on them, plus a link to the podcast, just because it's really hard to get into unless you go to our specific podcast page. And hey, a big shout out for Penny Billionaires, our live, the song, our exclusive song that we have at Two Guys in Hockey Talk. Thanks for the rights that we've been given over to Penny Billionaires, electronic hard rock band guys out of Arizona, out of Phoenix, Arizona. These two guys are phenomenal. So if you ever get a chance, definitely give them a follow as well.
I got to listen to a bit of the album at work. It's phenomenal. Give it a listen if you guys want. It's on Spotify as well. Those guys make pretty amazing music. So shout out to Penny Billionaires, right? Although I got to be honest, I don't think I'd want to be a penny billionaire because you'd be counting a lot of pennies.
Maybe that's the idea. We're billionaires, but only by pennies, right? So man, we have a loaded and a jack show for you. I was looking at bringing a couple guests in. It didn't work. The one thing I wanted to talk about today that we'll see for time, I'll put it at the end a little bit later. But anyway, so next week, Pavel doesn't even know this. I've already got it set up. We have a guest who's going to be on just for a quick 15, 20-minute hit next Wednesday. He was on early in the season, but we want to get an update from Flyers Nitty Gritty from Jamie Baskow. So he's going to be back with us here next week on the show to talk Flyers and what's happening. Because let's face it, a lot of our information, man, comes from Jamie Baskow and the team of Flyers Nitty Gritty, journalists, accredited group of people that follow everything around Flyers and all the hockey that's happening in the area.
I'm sure he's kicking himself in the boots seeing Bobrovsky, who the Flyers picked years ago, do as well as he does in the series right now, who potentially could sweep.
Can we talk? Can we talk about that right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody, hey, let me get into the comments here. Who do we got here? Matt, hey, Florida tonight win series. Okay. Ooh, yeah. I could see that, man. And Zilstra tonight, the Lost Trucker is calling in. Why listening in from Kamloops tonight, man? Hey, Zil, thanks for joining in here. Hey, there you go, Key. I gave you a heads up there, man. What's up, Key? Woo, there's Kyle. Guys, you may not been on at the beginning, but we were giving you a shout out nice and early, and we're giving you another. Guys, get over to Sports Empire Network.
I got to say, Kyle, you were able to get onto the other podcast on Sunday for the Lakers talk versus the Nuggets, and you can't get onto ours. Something's fishy here, but just saying.
Well, maybe I got to do a better job of setting things up here, man.
He's doing good. I've enjoyed being part of his Chomping at the Bit podcast. Go ahead.
Hey, and a quick mention. So, Key, let's touch base this week. Next week, I have Jamie Baskow coming back on from the Philadelphia Flyers for a 15, 20-minute hit. Love to get you on, and maybe just as a quick follow-up after that to talk around the Flyers. So let's connect this week, guys. All right, man. Yeah, I know they still stink. Okay, Key had to get that in. They still stink. But we want to talk. Can we go into this goalie thing really quick about Bobrovsky? Sure. So on Twitter, so you guys can follow me at Revenev if you want to get into some different. Listen, I'll be respectful to a point. Some of you that send me different stuff, I try really hard not to be, I guess, to return the arrogance that people have sometimes, when you come on. And one of the things is, now what I'm going to talk about isn't it, but one of the things is around the whole Jamie Benn, which we're going to talk about later here, obviously. I already know that my co-host wants to talk about Jamie Benn and the hit and the suspension and everything coming around here tonight. So let me hit on Bobrovsky. So Jamie Baskow brought this up. We'll touch in with him next week more. But he said, man, they let a good one go in Bobrovsky. Then I had some comments. I was told not to eat them up here tonight because I said I'm going to talk about it on the show. They said, don't eat me up. Don't talk bad on me. But what they're saying is, NHL, you're not a great goalie. The great goalies won Stanley Cups. So the great goalies won Stanley Cups. So if Bobrovsky falls short because they don't call Bobrovsky a great goalie, interesting, 2 Vezina trophies, I call BS on that. I think that great goalies do not mean you won the Stanley Cup. Here's the argument, and then we'll banter back and forth on it. So the first thing to say is, do great centers win the Stanley Cup? So can you be a center who never won a Stanley Cup? Can you be a great forward player? Can you be a great defenseman? I mean, you got to be able to look at that. And then, because you can't say goalies are different when it comes to calling them great. And then what about your team? What if you don't have a successful team that is played? So that's really, I think, my bigger question around that kind of thing. And so I guess if we look at it, Pavel, let me just name a few goalies who I consider.
I got 2 already in mind.
Okay. Before I get into that, I've been chatting. Name some goalies who you think are great goalies that you think you could win the Stanley Cup with that are not a Stanley Cup winner.
2 names quickly come to mind, and I'm sure everyone will agree: Carey Price and Harry King Lundqvist. Right there.
Okay.
Both excellent goalies. Both have been voted, in those polls that NHL players do. Like, if you wanted in a game 7 the best goaltender, oftentimes if he wasn't number 1, he was in top 3. Carey Price, Cujo, yeah. Curtis Joseph, a little bit older. I'm just talking about more recently retired. Henrik Lundqvist, one of the best international goalies ever.
I do want to mention, I'm talking, when you're talking here right now for our sake of our discussion, we're talking just all time, right? Okay. So anyway, so Carey Price is one.
Yeah. Henrik Lundqvist is another. Okay. Cujo is definitely up there.
Can I bring out, because there's a run, this could be the second trip to the Stanley Cup final for the Florida Panthers. Can I bring up who was in the first Stanley Cup finals but never won, and who was a former New York Ranger? The great Beezer, John Van Beesbrook.
Oh, yes.
I would have taken that guy on my team any year. Let me throw another one out to you. Would you seriously think you cannot win a Stanley Cup if you have the right team with Mika Kiprusoff? Like, come 100%.
On. Yeah.
Let's go another great that a lot of people maybe didn't like. He was considered a great leader, that they gave him the captaincy if you're a Vancouver Canuck or a Florida Panther as well. Exactly. Those are guys.
He may now win a cup, though, or a ring, Stanley Cup ring. Yeah.
Well, no, exactly. And it's so true, isn't it? You know, when you start going through some of these guys and seeing some of the numbers that these guys pull in, I mean, it's amazing to be able to see. So anyway, I mean, these are just some players I think that we mentioned right now that were great players. And so to say, now this is my thing. And we talked about this in goaltending, save percentage. If you are like Bobrovsky is, like in almost at a 940 save percentage, he's in the low 30s and mid 30s. Tonight he could be over 940, who knows? But if you can play at that level, I'm shocked if your team doesn't win the Stanley Cup. I mean, an example of a team that didn't get there was Shesterkin, right? When they made their run last year, his play was phenomenal. He was the reason they won, though. He literally was the reason. Right now, Florida, how many games did you say that Bobrovsky has stolen in these playoffs?
Quite a few, probably about 6 or 7, and not just versus Carolina, but Toronto
in the playoffs.
Even. The thing is, if you compare Carolina to Toronto, like even those two series, because Boston is a beast of its own. Dominic Hasek is another one. I was just
but let's just say, Dom, you're right, Zylstra. Hasek did win with the Detroit Red Wings, though won the Stanley Cup 1 year, but that was not Hasek's best year. That was playing on a dominant team that made Chris Osgood a Stanley Cup. And so if we say great, now, would anyone say Chris Osgood should actually be considered a great goaltender? Because he won a Stanley Cup. So just because you win a Stanley Cup, then that means you're a great, so the measuring stick, I think we got to be careful how we put that into place when it comes to goalies. But let's just say right now, and you posted an article, guys, you can go over to our website, twoguysinhockeytalk.com. Right there on our blog, a post went up earlier today, just some updates and some specifics
another goalie you could talk about who didn't make it, and I'm going to get back to my other topic because we're on tangent, is Kelly Rudy.
Okay, let's do it.
An elite goalie. He was solid. He put up good numbers and never won a Stanley Cup, right? But Sergei Bobrovsky has been playing elite. He could potentially win the Stanley Cup. He is most likely the Conn Smythe favorite next to Matthew Tkachuk right now if they go to the final, depending on who they face, whether it is most likely Vegas or, if Dallas pulls it out. But, you need elite goaltending, and he has played unreal. And even though Toronto had more high-danger chances against them, he still made the stops. Carolina, not so much. Carolina has always struggled with scoring. They're missing Pacioretty. They finally got Timo Teravainen back in the game. He's been playing. It's been good. But, of course, being away for so long, it's tough to get into the rhythm of things. And you need your secondary guys. And a lot of their scoring came from their defensive guys. The Brett Burns, the Brett Pesci's, the Shane Gostisbehere's Ghost. That's why he was brought in as a power play specialist.
Yeah.
But they're not putting up points. And Bobrovsky, I think one game he had a 972 or 982 save percentage in game 2 or 3 versus the Panthers.
Yeah.
With those kind of numbers, you're stealing a game. You are just stealing it, and you've got it. And to think that after that long overtime they had in game 1, that they were going to put Alex Lyon back in to rest Bobrovsky. Nope.
Yeah.
He came right back in and won game 2. So there you go.
Absolutely. Okay, so there was something you wanted to get to next.
Well, there's quite a few things I want to get to next, but do you want to talk about the Jamie Benn hit? And
Sure. Let's get on that.
So Dallas is now on the brink of elimination. Jamie Benn, who has had a history of playing some very questionable, possibly some people would say dirty hits, kind of took down Stone in a seamlessly neutral play in the neutral ice. No problem there. But then he followed through with his stick, which kind of grazed either between his neck and or his like chin / bottom face. And so you wonder, was that intentional? Was it not? He did have a hearing today. He did get 2 games suspended. So, if Dallas does compete, he won't be able to come back until at least game 6. So we'll see if that can happen, but that's a big loss. Okay. He didn't speak to the media after the game yesterday. And when he spoke today, he made some, questionable comments, especially given the captain. Usually as a captain, you're a leader and you got to come out and speak. He didn't really do that yesterday, which I don't agree with. His teammates had to come out and, say the typical banter, which of course they're going to stand up for him. But then to say that, it was an emotion of the game and that his stick kind of fell through and injured Stone, I question it. I thought it was a dirty play. I didn't like it. I get two games. I thought it was going to be 3, given what Michael Bunting got. But at the end of the day, it's unnecessary. Now, his history, he did a similar play with Dylan Larkin of the Detroit Red Wings. And I don't know if you remember, Evan, a few years back, I think it was 2 years ago or last year versus the Oilers, there was a bit of a scrum. And him and Hyman were standing behind on the blue line. And, they were just chatting until he knocked down Hyman's stick. And Hyman's like, come on. And then he went after Hyman and started knocking him down. So just a very greasy player. I know he plays on the edge, but you're a captain, you're a leader. That's uncalled for, and I did not like that call. I'm okay with 2 game suspension. I expected a bit more, of course, inconsistency, as always with DOPS, but I didn't like it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have no problem. I think it could have been a 3 game suspension easily. Just with the afterwards. What I don't like is the fact of not taking responsibility for your actions, saying it was the heat of the moment and I totally lost it and it was inappropriate, right? You know what? And I made a play that was not safe for another player. That's what he should have said. So today I take to Twitter because I'm having a little bit of an issue here with a 1 game suspension for Alex Pietrangelo and a 2 game suspension for Ben. Now here's the thing. Now I need your guys' take on this, because I'm being told I have Oilers rose-colored glasses on, and I'm looking at the Alex Pietrangelo and saying, now you got to remember, he comes from 20 feet away to Leon Draisaitl with a tomahawk with his stick. Never was intended on the game. I get cross checks. I get laying on people because that's in the hustle of the game. It's on sportsmen. It's wrong. It's violent. But taking a stick in the air like you're chopping is probably as much as it could have came down to Todd Bertuzzi's situation here also. I mean, it is totally inappropriate to me. I think he deserved a 3 to 5 game suspension. I think that is where it should have happened. And because it's not being called, and even this Ben with the 2 minute, why don't you do that? Why don't you go after the team's best players? And it's interesting. I'm not saying it's payback against a player on Vegas when one does it, but they're saying, well, he didn't even own up. Alex Pietrangelo never owned up to his either. He says, we're going to play the game the way it's meant to be played. Well, you never played the game. Department of Player Safety made sure, and people think that he had control of his stick to do a slash on the wrist, and it's not the same. Here's what I'm getting. If you're a Vegas fan, correct me if I'm wrong, but how come you can't admit that Alex Pietrangelo was totally inappropriate, irresponsible, and it was dangerous to the game and deserved much more, but yet you can find someone who comes against your team and now it's dangerous? So give me a take from outside.
Vegas, I agree. I'm going to hear from Vegas fans. Well, what about Kane and what he did to Colasar in the corner with the extra punches and jabs and stuff like that? And what about this? And what about Kane's, after whistle on ice, hit in the face, aggression at the end of the period? I agree with all that. The problem is that any other kind of type of move where it's indirect, puck is not in control. That's the key here. And he went after it. And I know that the next day or after the suspension was done, when Pietrangelo was interviewed, he kind of talked about what did he, I could be misquoted, but he talked about the fact that, well, they were going after him all night and they were targeting him. And so, of course, he got frustrated on the emotions. But you got to understand, last year, the Calgary Flames went after Leon Draisaitl's knee and ankle. Frank
After
Saravelli
he was
talked
hurt.
about it.
Yeah.
And the Oilers responded by winning. I get it. That's the best response you're going to get. But it happens where players target certain areas. Just like, correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, when a player has a weak glove side or a weak blocker side, our team's not exposing that. Why would they not go for that? It's just, this is more blatant. And he went for the two-handed slash. And that's where I don't agree. Yeah. And I'm sorry, Pietrangelo still should have gotten two. If Nurse was technically getting one, a call that they did not make in the regular season for a suspension when it happened twice. So again, inconsistency. And this is, again, I compare this more, the Ben hit on Stone to Michael Bunting on Eric Cernak, because it was outside the play and it was against a dangerous area, which is the neck and the face. And if you're trying to protect it and get that stuff out of the game, that's uncalled for. And according to some people, some insiders in the NHL, when Jamie Benn, A, didn't make that statement at the beginning, and then B, came out with a statement today that he did, kind of not really admitting responsibility and kind of just said it was an accidental follow through, right? It's not verbatim. That's when people got really upset, because he knows better. Jamie Benn's been around a long time. He's been guilty of this before, and he plays on the edge, but this is just uncalled for. And again, this isn't Mark Stone's back. So,
Nope. But well, and so here's the thing. I will say, yes, they were going after Stone. There was dirty play by the Oilers going against Mark Stone constantly. I saw it. I witnessed it. I'm like, guys, don't do this, because there's going to be retaliation. And that was why I think they lost the series. To be honest, I was worried about the Kings series the same, because they were doing stuff dirty. And so the Oilers played dirty back. And I get it. But here's the thing for Vegas fans who, again, I remember, and this is not all fans, by the way. I'm just saying the Vegas fans that are saying, if you're going to call something on the other team, you got to own up to your team playing dirty. Yeah. Colasar and Carrier were playing terrible and killing and hurting the Oilers' top six guys constantly. And they were taking advantage as lower end guys that could get kicked out, ejected. The Oilers fell for it, and they started doing the same.
Follow through on the stick for what's it called?
Yeah.
Matthias Ekholm. There was the kind of the brutal hit on Derek Ryan.
But I'm talking. But I don't call the Ekholm one. To me, that looked like an accident with the stick getting up and it didn't get called.
They said it's a follow through, but still, he saw his eye the next day.
But I'm talking about slashing and butt checking from behind and all that kind of stuff, and that's kind of got me a little bit concerned about some of that, I guess, with it. But anyway, having said all that. I think that if you're going to call a player out, I don't care about how many games suspension, but I think as a fan, the thing that you need to do is you need to acknowledge your own team if you're going to want to call out another team. And so talk about your dirty play and acknowledge it. So on Twitter, I've had some debates with people, and it's a sad take, I think, when you cannot admit to your own team and what Alex Pietrangelo, frankly, if that was regular season, I'd have him out for 2 weeks. That was ridiculous. And Ben should be out.
So the one thing that I'll add to that discussion, go ahead. Do you want to finish?
I was going to say, just finish. Ben has a history as well, and that is why I think he got more games in the playoffs. But again, I don't even think there was
Larkin.
And so I actually think that if it was regular season, you would find 2 weeks for Ben. So just so anyone's out there, I do not say what Ben did was okay at all, and I do not think, as he says, that it was accidental in the hit of the game. So
and let's be honest. We all know that the getting more suspensions in the playoffs is kind of like a double in the regular season. So this would technically be 4 game suspension. It's kind of what they're implying, right? Because if you do it 1 game, it's like 2 games in the regular season. Again, that's kind of like the mythos behind it, but So the one thing I will say, because I know you mentioned fans, and I want to bring it up. So the Dallas Stars had to announce and apologize for the popcorn and the litter and the beers thrown on Adin Hill and on the ice. And I know Adin Hill played it off at the end of the game during his interview and said, well, I guess, not everything was getting through, or nothing was getting through me. But at the end of the day, I remember people harping on not only Edmonton fans, but other fans for being ridiculous and throwing beers on the ground and being silly, or for being, or the fan in Vegas showing the middle finger to Kane and being rude. Every fan base, regardless of where you are at, even Toronto fans, you get this, right? For,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
get this all the time, being ridiculous and rude. And we do not, well, I just don't tolerate it. I think it's ridiculous. It takes away from the actual fans who want to enjoy the game. They want to boo. You want to have a good time. You want to have a beer. Hey, don't spend your money throwing beer if you're just going to chuck it on the ice, right? Like, that's silly, but it's your money, not mine.
Well,
but
it's because it's garbage.
at players, throwing things on the ice, dirt, litter. New Jersey did it this last year. Remember when they were playing Toronto and they got upset because 3 of their goals got called away? And the fans got so upset where they were throwing beers and stuff that Lindy Ruff and their own players like Jack Hughes had to be like, and Eric Holler were like, no, stop throwing stuff.
Stop.
Again, every fan base has it. Every fan base can be angry, can boo, can be upset. Once you get into physical altercation or littering, I don't want to talk to you. You can unfollow me. You don't have to follow us. I don't care.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like, you are not a child.
But I will say one thing I'll give to Dallas. Dallas went and made it publicly. What they did was inappropriate, and they apologized. I think the Oilers organization can learn something from that, because after what happened, what they should have done is made it known that that was not acceptable. So it showed that they're actually trying to protect the other team. I kind of felt like they were a little ticked off themselves and didn't really care and thought maybe it's an intimidation factor, old school. I don't know. I can tell you, and actually, Zylstra, I don't know if you're still following here. If you remember this, I believe you took me when we were young. We went in Cranbrook, and we saw the Cranbrook Royals. Old Bob Murdoch was playing. That might have been the game where you got some skates off him, or I don't remember the whole story. But anyway, we were at a game, and it was against the North Shore Winter Club. And the whole crowd of 2,000 people went crazy, calling BS on the refs and stuff. And then the ice got littered. It got littered. They thought they were going to cancel the game because of some stuff and some crazy stuff on the ice. It happens. That was senior men's league hockey, basically, is what that was back then.
The only litter I ever want to see is the teddy bear toss, because it's planned and it's for a good cause. That's the only litter I want to see on the ice. So
there we go.
I want to get into one little thing.
Just before that, Zylstra did mention something about Makarov. Should have got 3 games. I need help, Zylstra, or Les Pavel knows. Makar. Oh, yeah. Well, she might be. Hey, you know what? She might be voice to text right now. So we'll have to. So yeah, Kale Makar, 3 games. I agree. If we were talking about Kale Makar,
twin brother Makarov. Makarov.
It's like twins from watching the movie with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Okay, go ahead.
Evan, I want to get into one thing quickly before we talk a little bit about the Toronto job and the Calgary job.
Let's do it.
The surroundings.
Let's do it.
I don't know if you saw it today, but Andrew Shaw, former Chicago Blackhawks player, as well as Montreal Canadiens, amongst others, was on an interview for a podcast called Raw Knuckles. And I guess it came out that he made some comments surrounding Kyle Beats' situation. I listened to this podcast. Good following. They had some good talks. Turns out, he was talking about the broad history of like the franchise, what was going on, and the fact that Joe Quenneville, who recently was told by Gary Bettman himself that no, he cannot come back to coaching because he doesn't feel like he's made progress in terms of bettering himself given that situation. Was kind of upset at the fact that Joe Quenneville can't coach given his history as a successful coach, which I will agree, I will concede. But he made comments about the fact that Kyle should have technically stood up for himself and, really dominated that situation by addressing it quickly. And if that had happened to Andrew, he would have, nipped it in the bud, to say it very politely. That's not how that situation works, Andrew. I'm sorry. And the fact that he covered not only your rent and your groceries before you made a big buck in the NHL, the fact that you said that this is technically, indirectly Kyle Beach's fault, lost a little respect, not only for, again, the Chicago organization, but for Andrew Shaw. And he can at me all he wants. But the guy was your fellow player, and you said you didn't learn about it till later on, which I think reports have shown that that was not true. But to throw him under the bus that it's his fault, even though Kyle Beach was assaulted, and then this guy went on to Columbus and a few other places and assaulted younger men. I just don't tolerate that take, and I thought it was a bad take. It's great for viewership for Raw Knuckles podcast. Good for them. Maybe we can get a player and say something controversial one day in the future. But I don't know, Evan. I think Kyle Beach has gone through enough. The organization has got off very easily for how they handled that situation. And to be now awarded, and it has nothing to do with it, to be awarded Connor Bedard, it's a bit of a slap in the face all around. So I think I'm going to continue to stand with Kyle Beach and support him because he went through a lot. And I don't think that take by Andrew Shaw is going to be, it's not going to do him well long term. But that's just my thoughts. Your thoughts?
Well, okay. Regarding Shaw, I didn't actually hear it. I just saw the follow up to it, and I saw some of the quotes that I was guessing were true that were coming out of that situation. 100% agree with you on Andrew Shaw. Andrew Shaw should really keep his mouth shut. I'm willing to go to a back alley with someone like Shaw. He can beat the crap out of me all he wants, but I'm going to say this: I am a survivor of abuse, and I understand what Kyle maybe went through. Just because, Shaw, you were a tough guy. You could feel that you could do whatever you want to someone. Not just about money. There's so much more to deal with the psychological game of control. And I frankly think that he should have kept his mouth shut, even if he felt like that. He comes across pretty bad. I think he's lost a lot of respect right across the league. Might have got hits for the show, but Andrew Shaw is forever going to be, tagged now with being, I'm just going to say it, an a-hole, with that. So I didn't, like I said, hear it. I don't even think I want to go back to hear it. I think it's sick. Having said that, I'm totally, as well as Kyle Beach was actually represented as an agent, someone who's been on our show. You can check him out under former guest or Daryl Wolski at 2112 Hockey Agency. So yeah, go check out if you're looking. By the way, if you're a player, whether you have kids, whether you have loved ones, or you're just trying to get back into hockey anywhere around the world, and do it at some type of a pro level to be paid, Daryl Wolski's your man. Give him a check out. One of our former guests, Daryl Wolski. But I would like to say that I'm totally disgusted. The fact that people actually are still thinking about the number one pick and Connor Bedard has nothing to do with Kyle Beach. That was over how many years ago? Yeah, the first round draft pick. And I know that stuff came out. This is not a discussion going in the past, but when people feel like it's not fair, essentially it could be next year first. It could be the next year first or the next year first. People are going to feel like that all the time because they're mad at the Chicago organization. They have done their best to try to separate themselves. The only thing left in place is the ownership. And I know you can't change someone's mind if they think that they knew or did not know. We have our opinions. And it's like if you have a party, a political party you vote for, how many you actually change your opinion on that political party, even though you hate the person in charge? I mean, generally speaking, that's kind of like that for hockey. It's kind of like that for your takes. It's a confirmation bias, and we all believe our own bias. Even here on this show, we got our own bias, right? For me, the goalie's never wrong, right? So
okay,
anyway.
Well, you were wrong about one thing, so we'll get into it because
let's do it.
But this is a perfect segue. So let's talk about the shenanigans that are happening in Toronto because
I like that.
This is out. We had a bit of a spat about this privately behind the scenes. We were texting each other, and I just loved, for shits and giggles, to call you out the fact that you said Kyle Dubas is staying. Now, yes, I'm taking a snippet out of our podcast, which was episode 33 or 31, and you talked about it. But he's out. He's gone. It looks like the Pittsburgh job is his to lose from reports. He's already in Pittsburgh right now. He's had dinner with Sidney Crosby. That's the reports now. Because I know that was their plan A. Then they went to plan B, but they've already told a lot of their candidates, like Mark Bergevin, like Mark Hunter, not so much. Brendan Shanahan, I put this squarely on him, Evan, and I think he has left a really chaotic hole left in the organization, regardless of how the team does, because now you don't know what's happening with Matthews. You don't know what's happening with your roster, and the draft is just around the corner. What are your thoughts on that press conference and what's going on in Toronto?
Well, first of all, I love it when you call me out because then it means that I got to do my homework and go back. So I do remember, I think it was episode 31. It was 31 or 33, but I'm pretty sure it was 31. We had a couple episodes that we talked around this.
Yes, we did.
My take, and I had a hard time getting that take out because you were misunderstanding my take. My take was everyone was saying that if they don't get out of that first round, he's not coming back. And I was telling people that there's no one better. This is who they want. There's a couple things I did not know at that time also, but fair enough. I was saying, here was my take. It was not that it was that the Toronto Maple Leafs did not want to get rid of him, that they wanted to bring him back. That was my take. I was trying to make a point that had nothing to do with his record, that what they had, they weren't going to get better. Now, what he did coming out publicly, there was issues that we didn't know about. One of the issues that we did not know about was that he had a lot of trouble making trades, making calls on the ice, things that he wanted to do, certain players that had to play, how much they were going to play. He did not have full autonomy. That was from Brendan Shanahan. And he started to not feel. So when he talked about family, what we were trying to figure out was what's going on behind the scenes. Now, when he started saying stuff that was supposed to be kept quiet by Brendan Shanahan, who I have said on this show, if anyone needs to go, it's Brendan Shanahan. And it was just because
it was his guy.
Why? I mean, even before him, right? Going back to Lou Lamoriello and all the different people. This was all Shanahan.
Over Mark Hunter. Do you not remember the debate?
Mark
Hunter versus him? Sorry.
Absolutely. Because he was his boy that he was training. But see, it's his boy. And he's training and he's getting what he wants. And what people didn't know is the purse strings and the things on the ice that should not be a responsible of the president of hockey operations were his still. And Shanahan was making him. And Dubas was super frustrated. Dubas takes the hits, not Shanahan. People blame Dubas. And that stress was obviously driving him. So he made this ploy. I actually thought he was just going to walk away. But then he made this ploy to make more money and get a bigger because I don't think there was much increase. And he was like, if I'm staying, I'm getting good money.
6 to 7 million is what reported he was asking for.
This hasn't come out yet, but this is what I've kind of heard is this possible? And we're going to find out over time, obviously, and maybe in some book someone writes, but was this ploy and what he did, already knowing how mad Shanahan was, a good way to get out of the franchise by having them say he's gone? Hurting the franchise in doing that and freeing him immediately from the franchise to be able to get somewhere, because you don't want to wait till after July 1st. Otherwise he would have had to wait. So this is some of the in behind stuff. And like you said, he's over in Pittsburgh. I can tell you one thing right now. He is asking with Fenway Sports for a 100% autonomy. And he is also looking for a good contract. So it's going to be, but he'll take some of those boys with him. The fact Jason Spezza, I think he's early in the management scene, but Jason Spezza resigning, there was a reason. There was a reason.
And that is what I think was a red flag for me, because Jason Spezza, loved by a lot of people in the hockey community. He is respected. He's taken a discount. He played for his hometown. He really contributed. He played in the Marlies when he needed to. He kept his mouth shut. This older guy. And as soon as Dubas got fired, red flags came up when Spezza left, because he knew something that he didn't like. And I know there's a lot of people that are still in the organization that were Dubas people, but I got to be honest with you. I think this is on Shanahan. And again, he picked his guy. He made this happen. Now, whether or not he wants to keep the core as it is, because there's now rumblings from Chris Johnson saying he may keep all 4 guys. Whether that's true or not, how do you come back? And I don't put this on Dubas. He did the best he could. Now, I'm not going to go out there and say Toronto fans he was the best GM in the world. He learned on the job. He was young. He started when he was 27 as an AGM. But he did the best he could. And if you hear how difficult it was to make some of the decisions, and he did favor, Sault Ste. Marie guys, he paid out these big contracts. But when your Nylanders and your John Tavares, who are making 1/3 or like pretty much, 1/3 of the salary cap, you're not performing. Even if you include Morgan Riley, that's not on the GM. That's on the players. And they did not perform that well, not even versus Tampa. But Tampa was weak, exhausted, injured, and they just barely got through. And Vasilevsky was not otherworldly. So, and as you can tell, give credit and kudos to the Panthers because they rocked it. So I think there's a lot
Okay.
of turmoil in there. There's definitely going to be a lot of things. Now, don't get us wrong. There are people in place like the scouts ready for the draft. But the problem is you have contracts to sign. You got to build a roster for next season. You got to see who's coming because players like Luke Shen, players like Ryan O'Reilly, are you bringing them back? So now I know there's been rumblings and you've talked about it before. Brad Treliving coming in potentially being the favorite right now. And we're going to get to Calgary in just a second. But your thoughts on him coming in because they want a veteran experienced GM.
Can we leave everyone holding on that for just a moment? Because I'm looking at the time and I want to get to this, guys, but we want to keep mentioning because some of you join us late. Guys, make sure that you join us every Wednesday right here, 7 p.m. You can follow us on Twitter at hockey_2 for Pavel. You can follow me at RevanEv. Follow us every Wednesday, as well as just a shout out to our partners, the Sports Empire Network. They do all podcasts of all sports that are hanging out there and give us the stream that we're able to come to you live, as well as a big shout out to JR Web Designs. Guys, check them out. They're right on our Facebook page. We now have open that run this thing. So it's 2guysinhockeytalk.com. Follow us on all the media streams. There you can read our blogs. We got a new blog up today directly about some of the stuff we're talking about from Pavel, myself. If you want to be a writer, come on enjoy, as well as follow all of our former guests that are there. And Penny Billionaires, when we go out tonight, if you haven't heard our new song, we have the exclusive rights to, thanks to our partnership with Penny Billionaires electronic hard rock band. All right, let's come back to Brad Treliving.
All right, let's bring it up.
Okay, so I'm a little concerned now that I know about the Shanahan situation. Spitting Chicklets, I don't know if you got to see it. Spitting Chicklets just had an episode with Rick Vive. I'm not sure if you saw the episode with Rick Vive, but what happened?
I did not get a chance.
Okay,
to. It's on my
so Rick Vive is talking about.
I have been so consumed with Toronto media in terms of what's been going on.
But this is a part of it though.
Yes,
that's why So Rick Vive had a run-in with Brendan Shanahan. So Rick Vive is known in Toronto. He's a legend in Toronto. He's a 50-goal scorer. But later in his career, when he was in Buffalo, as well as previously, he had been with Toronto, and I'm trying to remember, he was with 3 or 4 teams. But anyway, Brendan Shanahan was a young guy coming into the New Jersey Devils, where he was drafted. And it's interesting. He says he never got an autograph from Rick Vive. Now, Rick Vive says, I don't remember that at all. But the first time they met each other, literally, he went after him in a fight and pummeled him into the ice. And Rick Vive just said on the show today about what, you got something different you want to talk about?
No. You're right. Vancouver. He started with Vancouver, Toronto for a very long time, Chicago, and then finished with Buffalo, in between with Rochester Americans, back to Buffalo, back to Hamilton Tiger Cats, and then that was it. Yeah.
Tiger Cats?
No, Hamilton Canucks. Sorry.
Who's that, Rick Vive?
Yeah, Rick Vive in 92, 93 in the AHL.
92. Oh, at the end of his career?
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
My brain is on CFL, so it's...
Yeah. No, that's cool. I was getting, Detroit Tigers. No, that's Lions. So anyway,
he started in Vancouver. That was one season.
So okay, no, that's interesting. And then he went to Toronto.
Yeah, for several seasons.
No, that's great. So anyway, with Rick Vive, he shares on how he just got pummeled to the ice, and he asked him what that was about, and he says, "You never signed an autograph from me when I was a kid." It's just, so I want to bring this up because I think Brendan Shanahan is petty. And I don't mind saying that. No, I honestly do. I could bring you up stories of his career when we were following him in his changes. I've heard stories around agents and stuff like that I don't always believe, but I'm sorry, seeing what I've saw, you can only go by what we see. And I understand it's behind the scenes, but if that Rick Vive, and I'm going to trust Rick Vive, Brendan, and if he's saying that you got upset about an autograph, your first NHL game, you got to fight the guy because you're mad at him, which he doesn't even remember, and which is something he never did. And you're dealing with this stuff in public. I think you could have dealt with this more professionally. Maybe he wishes he had. But I feel like he does not take the blame for anything. And right now, if I'm a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, I feel screwed. Because I don't think that Dubas is a god. I don't think that it's not they can't recover. I think the backlash from this is going to affect them. And I wonder if Brad Treliving wants to go to somewhere he does not have full autonomy. because that's what he did not have in Calgary. He did not have full autonomy. It was being run by owners. Don Mahoney was doing his own stuff as the president of hockey operations. So, which can bring us to them in just a moment. I'm starting to debate if Brad will take the job, even if he could get it.
I think he will, because it's a prestigious job. There's a lot of people who'd be interested in the job, and you do have a good set holder already in place. So similar when Ken Holland started at Edmonton, you have these, elected players, like
different ownership though. Are you going to go where they're telling you what you?
Don't get me wrong, but it's still,
right?
It's still.
So you think, so you feel that Brad would take a job where he was already told what to do, where everything flew on him for the Kachuk and Goudreau stuff, not on the ownership, not on dealing with the coach, where you're told, see, I don't know if Brad's going to do that, because I don't know if he cares about prestige. He's been around long enough that he can have a great job.
But it's money. Money can also speak volumes. So if he gets offered,
he's got money though.
Oh, agreed. I don't get me wrong. But again, it's the lucrative job of being the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, like the mecca of hockey. A lot of people, I think, would enjoy that job and that challenge. And Brad Treliving, as everyone knows from Calgary, he keeps a lot of things close to the vest, and he does a lot of good things, right? He made Calgary competitive for a very long time. And say what you want, he's brought in some big names and had to get rid of some players that, albeit, didn't want to stay there. Most notably, you think about Adam Fox, who didn't want to play there and now is a New York Ranger. But there's a lot of players that went through there.
True.
And he made, Calgary competitive. We'll talk about Calgary in just a sec. But the way I see Brendan Shanahan is that it looks bad on both sides. This isn't just a pro Dubas and bad Shanahan. Both of them look bad in the situation. It does not look good when your dirty laundry is aired out. However, the challenge, I think, with Brendan Shanahan is that he is in such a position of authority that he did not want to look like he was losing the negotiations. Yeah. And I think because Kyle came out and talked on that presser, which he advised him not to do, Shanahan, on Monday, and then he talked about his family, and that was brought up. And I know that some people, harped on Dubas for doing that, which every person's going to advocate for themselves. That's part of the world, right? But Shanahan looked like, or felt maybe like, he lost the argument. And let's talk about this completely, because we knew going into the season that there was no contract extension for Kyle Dubas, and a lot of it was riding on their playoff success. So management and Brendan Shanahan left themselves vulnerable to that position, that within a week's time of last week, that's when all this emerged, and that's when they made their decision. Apparently he made a decision driving on the 401 or 403 or 405 in Toronto, which can be hectic for anybody watching, right? If they live in that area, they know.
Okay, Zilcher writes, all players, presidents of hockey operations need to back off.
To some extent, I agree. It really depends. But again, I think that relationship soured after several years. I think it's like 6-7 years together.
So what would you say, just to value your point, when you say depends, so it's not vague, what is the difference of whether they should back off or not?
For
what would be an example when you think a president of hockey operations should be more involved
for trades and for potentially trading one of the top four?
Really?
Shanahan, yeah. Because what's the GM's job then? What's the point of a GM, Evan? I know.
No. President of hockey operation, you mean? Because the GM's job is to trade.
Deciding that, but the president is now saying to his teammates, he called the four key guys, the Nylanders, the Marners, the Matthews, and said, you guys potentially aren't being moved. Like, you guys are somewhat safe. Now, again, it's vague. It's not written in stone. Things can change. But when you're saying that to your top key guys and you know you need a change, who's making that decisions? And again, apparently it was Dubas went to Shanahan, Shanahan went to the board, and then the owners, and then vice versa down until the decision was agreed upon.
Okay, I'm kind of confused on your answer. So what I'm asking, you're saying that general managers should be in. I'm saying, why should the president of hockey operations be more involved? Like you said, sometimes. So what's the occasion that a president should be more involved?
Because the president of hockey is trying to do the business side of hockey.
Okay, but what is it that you think that they need to be involved in a decision? What decision?
Goal and where you're going as a franchise. What direction are you heading? What is the vision of the team? Apart from trying to get the.
But if you tell me as a general manager that I don't have autonomy to make the decisions on players, and I got to sell you on it. And I came in thinking that I have that ability because some presidents let you do it.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now that all we have to look at is the Oilers and Chiarelli, right? The trade of
Yes.
Hall. He didn't really run it. He ran it by, but they pretty much gave him full autonomy. Yeah. I mean, well, he was actually told to sign that contract. That's another. Yeah. Yes, he was. Yes, I believe he was. There was a lot to lead us to do that
because he was fired a few days later. So I don't know.
No, and it was brought out that he actually brought that to mention. That was already decided, and it was an ownership panel that decided on that.
I think we're saying the same thing, maybe just not in the same words. So,
So-
it is
so-
semantics. But I agree. Like there is some things that they should be involved in. And again, as we used to learn from our former boss, who's now retired. Poop flows upward, right? So they don't want to be surprised by what something comes up their way. So they just want to be updated. However, they can make suggestions. They can make, like, I think, for example, the Matt Murray signing or trade from Ottawa, I think that was all Dubas. He brought the guy that he believed in. And I'm sure people in the organization said, don't do it. That's a bad idea. He's injury prone. But Dubas stuck to his guns and forced it and made the argument. And it's okay to have debate and people who can say, you know what, Evan, don't bring this guy in. I don't believe he's what you believe he is. And you could say, well, actually, analytically or the eye test, whatever, we believe in him. We got to bring him in. So at the end of the day, there's going to be banter. But as a GM, you should have somewhat like 90% to 100% full autonomy in deciding. Within reason, of course, you don't want to go crazy. But I think if a president of hockey is involved, you have to establish that rapport at the beginning. And I think that's what's going to happen with Brad Tree Living and with, if he's brought in, and with Brendan Shanahan. But enough about that because we've
no, you haven't given me a chance to respond on that either.
Oh,
though. Okay, so Zilster says nope. Now let me just say what I Zilster, he doesn't know what the nope means to. Nope towards which. He said a lot of things in that small amount of time. I just want to say this is the difference to me. A franchise player, when you get hired as a GM, it should be noted. This is our franchise player. If you want to move this player, Austin Matthews, then that requires us. Mitch Marner, you can't make every player. Maybe two players, but you can't say this is who we protect. And that could be Edmonton too. That could be in Kane and Tays, all that stuff, but dating back. That's my opinion. However, I do think that when you have a new general manager and you're bringing in, which I know we were going to talk about, we only got a few minutes. I guess we're going to end with Calgary, and we'll go over there. But in the situation, say in Calgary, and this will lead into it, when you got a new GM that's at an NHL level, even like when Kyle Dubas came in, I think that was the problem. He came in and knew that he probably didn't have some of that autonomy, thought he earned that autonomy. So let's be fair to Shanahan. So there you go, Brendan. If you ever listen to the show one day, you will know that I am saying that there is another side to your story, and that that the fact is Dubas probably wanted more, wasn't going to get it, and maybe that's what he should have negotiated. If I'm going to stay, I want more autonomy. If not, then I'm going to have to just look elsewhere because that's what I'm looking for. You could have done it more peacefully, obviously, but that's I think a president of hockey operations. If Ken Holland moves over at the end of next year, but moves into a president only and then helps mentor that new person. But I think there needs to be a time. You can't go more than 2-3 years, and you got to pass over the full reins outside of going to ownership for a franchise player or two. Anyway, that's my take. Let's move over.
What happened there with Ron Hextall and Brian Burke, and both of them being brought in, and Hextall being officially the GM, and then I think Burke was the president of hockey operations, but involved in some of the decision making, and it didn't work out, right? I mean, they made some decisions questionable, and now
did you read the articles today? Did you read the article from Rossi today? Rob Rossi.
Not yet.
Okay.
So yes, I did. Yes, with
it's quite long. It's quite long.
Evgeny Malkin and whatnot. So we'll get into it next week. I do want to just mention one thing, and I want your quick initial thoughts. It's a short thing. So the Buffalo Sabres have signed their captain, Kyle Okposo, to a 1-year, $2.5 million. Props to him. Some people online think this is an overpay. Evan, what are your thoughts?
Oh
He's
yeah,
about, I think he's 36 years old.
I think it's 2.5. Yeah,
It is 2.5. Yeah.
Yeah, from Heavy Hitters, Jennifer he was talking about it too, and I found it actually quite interesting. So here's my take: it's a 1-year contract. It's a little high for an older guy at his stage, but he's a veteran. He's experienced, and right now the cap is not an issue for them for next year. I think he's a great guy to keep there for a year, but I wouldn't pay him to go on another team that's doing whatever at $2.5 million still. So I don't think it's a big deal at 1 year at that kind of numbers. I mean, essentially, hey, I would take probably Kyle Okposo over a Warren Fogle in Edmonton, and Warren's making much more money. So,
That's true.
So
he is younger, but yeah.
Yeah, but I guess it depends what you're looking for. I think Buffalo needs leadership, and Kyle supposedly is a very good guy dealing with that. In fact, we're going to talk about and we next week. I'd like after we get through the Flyers stuff with Jamie Basco, I'd like to maybe talk if we can start getting into some UFA players that are going to be available, whether they stay and sign or whether they find new homes and stuff. So, okay, let's do a quick update.
UFAs or ones that are coming up. Congrats to Craig Conroy on becoming the new GM of the Calgary Flames. And there's a lot of happiness around this. There's a lot of buzz around the Calgary Flames organization because he talked about it in his presser. I don't know if you watched it. It was very intriguing. He really wants to make room for younger guys. So the Jacob Pelcher, the Dustin Wolves, who really came out and really dominated in the AHL, and Jacob Pelcher had an elite season. And of course, finding a new coach, potentially Andrew Burnett's name has been out there. But your initial thoughts around this?
I love their coach. That it's going to be Love. Their Calgary Wrangler coach will be. You heard it here. The next Calgary Flames coach. I think he's going to go with Conroy. I think as well as I think you're going to see Huska back on the bench, working with Love. I think
we should mention that we know one of the Huskas.
Yeah, Brent. This is it. I believe whether they first or second cousins. Something along that lines.
First cousins,
yeah. Brent is where I kind of got my writing start with Oilers Jambalaya back in the day. Brent Huska. We don't have him on our former guest yet. He will be going on there so you can link in. Guys, we're trying to get him there. Who is that? I'm thinking when you said who dat.
Brett Huska. He's been on the show before, but his.
I don't know if that's what Zilster's referring to. She might mean Love. So Love, if you mean the coach, Love has been the coach of the Calgary Wranglers. Which has everyone considers him pretty much the next coach in waiting to come out of the minor pro. Yeah, not just for a year, but he's been for years. Right? Yeah, a couple times. Yeah. It's kind of like the next John Cooper, Jay Woodcroft kind of a player. I just didn't know if it was an experienced guy coming in. I thought he's going to bring in experience. But you know what? If you're going with Craig Conroy, why bring in these guys who are rehashed? Go with what you know. If you're going to play young, let's kind of go into it. Now, hang on. Pelche.
Jacob Pelche.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Young guy playing on the top 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So
one of their draft picks.
They have a lot of business and a lot of things to do on top of coach. They got some players on 1-year contracts left and a few unexpired in these veterans. So you got Tyler Toffoli coming off a great season with 1 more year left. Lucic has done his contract. What does that look like? You have Elias Lindholm, who I know apparently there's been reports that Carolina had interest in him at the deadline, right? And he's your top line center. And he wasn't really happy with how things went.
He's coming back.
You have someone like Michael Backlund. He's back?
No, I said Lindholm will be playing for the Flames on a longer
he's got
contract.
1 more year left.
I think he signs. I think he's going to sign an extension. Yeah, I think with the change.
Barzell and Horvat contract.
That's fair.
$8.5 million start.
It's going to be a little harder. It will be a little harder just because of the fact that he had a down year, right? So
yeah, you're looking at people in the back end. Zadorov, he's done. Like, what is that going to look like? And then in net, who are you coming back with? Most likely Vidar is out if Dustin Wolf is coming in and going to be your backup playing 20 to 30 games next season.
They'll be able to trade Vidar.
But do you trade Vidar or do you trade Markstrom now with somebody who with his term? And I think he's got 2 years left on $6 million. So you go with that, right?
Well, yeah, and that's going to be a tough sell you know how it is. Everyone, Bobrovsky, they were trying to say they're going to pay half of his $10 million, and like even Edmonton had interest potentially before Campbell. And do you send a draft pick back and they eat half the cap? And now Bobrovsky look what he's doing, right? I mean, they will be in the Stanley Cup final. You know what I mean? It's just so you got to be careful with the goalie thing. I'd be careful on Markstrom. I see people down in Huberdeau, guys. It's a one-off season. It's the worst season really of his career. He was playing with a lot of struggles where he was. It's going to change. It's going to change. And I think Markstrom will be there. But you're right. I just don't think it's tradable at this exact moment, because who would he go to that he's going to be open? And I believe there might be
So teams
a movement clause.
For a goalie. Buffalo right now, they're looking for a goalie. Pittsburgh, because they don't have Yari signed, and Casey DeSmith is kind of wishy-washy again. They don't
too
have
costly.
Buffalo.
Too costly.
I know Buffalo has been interested also in a goalie. I know they have what's his name coming up through
Devin
young rookie.
Devin Levi. Devin Levi.
Devin Levi, right? So he's coming up. And Craig Anderson had retired, and
they're good. I think Buffalo's good. I think that Pittsburgh is too expensive.
In Hellebuck, so we'll talk about that next week. So
interesting. I haven't heard that. So
because Hellebuck is on for a year, and they're very
we've run our time, man. We've run our time.
So Calgary, we'll finish it up. But final thoughts on Calgary, Evan.
No, I think it was the right choice. It was the right choice. Craig Conroy, we talked about it in the show, mentioned it quite a while back. I think we just weren't sure if they were going with experience. They said it's not a rebuild. It's kind of a retool, but they are going to take a step back. Hopefully they can make the playoffs next year, but don't be thinking about a title. If they make a title, it's a bonus.
And we're going to probably know next week, given that Alberta has their election on Monday, whether or not that arena is approved, depending on who gets in place. So as people recall, we talked about it. The UCP team has announced that they would fund portion of the arena funds. So that could potentially be another big success win for the Calgary Flames organization, which they needed. So remember, guys, we're finishing up every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We are here. We are on Facebook with our articles. We got our website, Two Guys in Hockey Talk. You can check us out with all the articles. We're trying to post weekly. We're getting more writers. That's coming. We are on Twitter. You can follow Evan at RevenEv. You can follow me at hockey_2. We are partnering with Sports Empire. We love hearing from you guys. We love seeing and interacting with you guys, so long as it's respectfully. And we love the playoffs because they are wild, as well as the Memorial Cup coming up. That is something that Evan's going to be keeping an eye on because he loves his prospects and his young guns.
I need time to start talking about prospects and what's going on around with the Memorial Cup, brother. I've been missing it because there's so much NHL stuff going on. So, guys, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die for what is right.